When I came to Marian, I thought of her as an interesting piano player. But what really attracted me to her was her jazz advocacy, because I'd spent so many years in my life running a jazz nonprofit, trying to promote jazz, get people to listen to jazz. I mean, I was that kid that grew up in high school who told you when you were in 10th grade, you should listen to jazz. It's more interesting than the Rolling Stones, or the Rolling Stones weren't even invented when I was saying that. I was always like a big flag waver for jazz. And I was really intrigued that this woman from England who had this amazing voice on the radio was so fluent, not only in playing the music, but with the personalities and the culture of the music. And that she, unlike many other people who loved the music, she could get across to the average person. Marian was a person where if you were at a cocktail party and you said you're into jazz, inevitably the first thing out of somebody's mouth would be either, yeah, I love Dave Brubeck, or I listen to Marian McPartland. She's a common denominator. And that really intrigued me. I was like, how does she do this? What kind of a person is she?
You talk a lot in the New Forward about obviously the specific challenges of working with her, as well as, just more broadly having sort of what I'll put in air quotes, official access to somebody who's still alive and their papers and their material. Could you talk a little bit about sort of the tension, as well as like constraints and opportunities that having that direct access creates? Because I would imagine it's a different experience if you're just combing through archives in a library or a private collection, and you don't really care about the subject's perspective.
Well, it was intimate. That's the best word for it. It was like a biographer's dream. We go to libraries and sift through people's archives. We look for every scrap of information. Where were they? Who did they play with? How did this happen? What's the timeline? Marian was her own archivist. So down in her den, below the kitchen in her lovely little house in Port Washington on Long Island, she had virtually the Marian McPartland and Jimmy McPartland archive and library. It was like the biographer's dream in one sense, in that you're down in the den and you've got all the articles, and then you're reading something that makes you think of a question, like, when did you meet Django Reinhardt? And all you have to do is walk up the stairs, and there she is in the kitchen having tea, and you can say, so when did you meet Django Reinhardt? Yeah. But on the other hand, she was a very guarded person, so despite that physical intimacy for 4 or 5 months at her house, she also kind of had a ready-made answer for every question, and it wasn't always true or complete. She was her own biographer, and that was one of the reasons that she was having so much trouble letting somebody else write the story.